Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a first impressions video for you on a knife that I have wanted for so long. In fact, before this knife even existed, when there were just rumors about it, and then when it did exist, it wasn't in the right configuration. So let me give you a little bit of the background here. Before that, I have to say I was able to pick this up while I was on a recent trip. I was speaking on the Southeast Institute of Biblical Studies lectureship, and that takes place in East Tennessee. So I was able to go down there with my family, spend some time in the mountains in Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, do all this stuff. Um, and fortunately, my family was gracious enough to let me stop repeatedly at Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and that was worth doing because their stock changes pretty frequently. So even in the few days that I was there, I made a couple of stops, and they had different things available from day to day. So huge thank you to my family for bearing with the knife addiction, and of course. Being a preacher, then they they had to sit through lectureships, which mostly they enjoyed, but especially my kids were like, "Dad, how many preachers do we have to listen to?" Anyway, back to the knife in question. This knife is, of course, and many of you will already know that this is the Microtech Stitch. All right, so let's go ahead and grab the knife. There it is. I have loved this design for so long that um, even when and I think if you guys probably know what I'm talking about, if you know a little bit of the history of this, this was a Borka Blades design initially, and then um, Microtech made an automatic version of it, and then finally made a manual version with the ram lock. And I'm speaking a little out of turn here, like I don't know this for sure, but I suspect what delayed the manual version was the R&D on the ram lock, which, by the way, I have to say they've done a really nice job. So now, after years and years of waiting, I finally have a knife that I have wanted since I reviewed the custom stitch from Borka. I was wishing back then that there would be a production version, and it finally happened. And now there is one other element here that we have to point out, and that is these have been very difficult to get. They seem to be a little more widely available now. And I have to say, I'm pretty pleasantly surprised at the price. You know, if Spyderco did something like this, I think we'd be paying quite a bit more for it. Um, their design collaborations tend to really push the envelope of price. These are like $300 in the G10 version, which is not terrible for the um, tool that you're getting for that kind of money. All right. So let me give you a quick rundown. First of all, this is not a small knife. These are actually pretty large. Let me throw a pair of two in here just to give you an idea. So you can see the stitch is considerably bigger than the pair two, coming in at 8.5+ inches. It's also pretty solidly built and rather heavy and kind of hand filling, all of which, by the way, I do rather appreciate. So I'm not complaining about any of that stuff at all. Uh, so let me just give you a rundown of the features here, size, weight, and then I want to give you my first impressions. And I have to say, there are actually some negatives here that I want to bring up. And I think part of that is I built this up so much in my mind that um, a couple of little things that I don't absolutely love just stand out because I had sort of envisioned this to be, so good that a couple little hiccups really kind of are noticeable, at least for me. Okay, so first of all, let me give you size, weight, and all that kind of stuff. This is 8.5 inches overall, 3 11/16 on the blade, 3 3/4 grip area. That's just back here. Okay, that's not including this very large, generous choil, which definitely adds um, a whole lot of space. Okay, I'd actually one of the things that I'm going to complain about is this choil could be a little bit bigger. Smaller, I'm sorry. So look where my finger lands. If they would have given me that extra 1/4 inch of blade, I think I would have appreciated that. Um, I feel like there's probably room for it internally, but nonetheless, that's that's one of the things that I think it's a complaint, but it's not a complaint that was unknown. I think if you look at this, you can see the cutting edge to overall size ratio is a little wonky. Um, 3 1/8 is the cutting edge, and I feel like that's important because on a larger knife than like this, you would expect more, but no. Um, and this weighs in at 6 ounces. So again, fairly heavy for its size. To me, 6 ounces is not a big deal. I have tons of knives that are heavier that I carry all the time. It doesn't really bother me, but I know for a lot of people, that's going to make it sort of an instant pass. All right. Um, The next thing to touch on is a quick rundown of the features on this particular one. And again, there are some variations available. So up front, we have this clip-ish point blade with the M390 MK steel. So that's a special formulation of M390 that is exclusive to Microtech. So, you know, essentially you can just expect really good performing M390, what you would expect from a great heat treat, from a little bit of attention to detail, which is good, right? So the blade steel is great on this. Moving down to the action, we have the ram lock, which is not really a variation of the crossbar lock. To be honest, it's quite a bit different. It's probably more similar to the Spyderco ball lock, but even that, it's different from that as well. So you can see right in there's a coil spring, and if you look in here, oh, I should have brought a flashlight. Let's see. All right, sorry about that, guys. I had to go find a flashlight. There you go. Now you can see it's a little bright. Let's see if I can just tone that down with my fingers a bit. Now you can see that coil spring in there and that very substantial, essentially milled piece of steel that serves as the locking interface. All right. We might do a little bit more. I'll probably grab some pictures of disassembly so we can see that in some more detail on the in the full review. Okay, let's get back to features here. So we have the ram lock, which is great. Multi-row bearings, fluted G10 on this one. Now there are some variants available of this. In addition to the fluted G10, there is a different G10 pattern, I believe, as well as an FRN pattern. All right, move back here. We have a full back spacer that does have this run of jimping. There is some jimping on the back spine as well. We've got an integrated lanyard hole, deep carry clip that is movable from side to side. Okay, and a full liner, but the full liner is narrow. It doesn't extend to the full width of the handle. So that's a quick rundown on the features. I do have a couple of little complaints that I want to share with you since, honestly, I'm really excited about this knife and I do absolutely love it. So, and I feel like there's been so much positive about this knife, and I'm not the only one to say good things. I really, really do enjoy this, but there are a couple things that detract just slightly from the awesomeness. Okay. And those two things are, number one, the detent on this is not great. So it's a pretty soft, I'm not going to be able to get it happen on camera, but it actually takes a little bit of practice to be able to spidey flick this because there's just not enough tension on the blade for you to sort of build up any force behind your finger, right? So the action is not great. Also, the feel of this, if you haven't done anything to it, now I've cleaned mine up a little bit, but as this moves, you can see that ram lock is applying pressure to the back of the blade. And the spring tension is fairly high, meaning there's a fair bit of pressure. So what you can do is just put a little bit of oil on here. Now, that introduces a new problem. When you add that little bit of oil, it can increase the lock stick, okay, which this doesn't have any, but this has been a discussed issue with the ram lock, is they can get a bit of a lock stick. And part of that, I think, is just because that coil spring is such high tension, which you want, right? It makes it a very positive lockup, but that means the fidget factor is slightly reduced. Okay. So that's one of the things. The detent could be a little stronger on this. which I would appreciate quite a bit. The other thing here is these screws, and especially on the show side, this stands out. Look at the size of these screws, and these screws are under the clip on the clip side. Now it's great to have a fully ambidextrous knife. I think especially lefties are going to be a huge fan of that. But um, it could there are a couple things that could have just been a little bit better. Fully flush screws, especially under that deep carry clip, would have been nice. You can see how that reduces the space just a little bit. All right. And it would have really cleaned up the show side to have flush fitting screws there. All right. Now, all the screws are T8s, which are awesome. And then this is actually a T20, I believe. Where's my anyway? It's either a 15 or 20, but I'm about 80% sure that it's a 20. Okay. So that's a really welcome feature. Oh, okay. What do we got overall here? What is my first impression on this? Great design, beautiful knife, extremely well built by Microtech. Um, the sort of overbuilt do anything tank of a knife that we want from Microtech and that I really enjoy. If you're a cold steel fan, I think, this is going to be right in your wheelhouse. Now, if you don't like the larger, heavier stuff, if you don't like overbuilt, if that is just not in your knife vocabulary, then this is probably not a knife for you. However, for me, this is absolutely amazing. I will say this, I strongly suspect that we'll see a smaller version of this because the way this is designed, one, there's a Borka Custom that's smaller already, that works really well, okay? But the way this is designed, it really lends itself to a smaller knife because of this sort of, it's built almost to be held like this, all right? To use the blade as part of the grip area, leaving a whole lot of extra handle, kind of exposed there. So I could definitely see this working in a smaller form factor. Now, that would not be the knife for me, but I know for a lot of people out there, that might be more appealing. Thanks a lot for watching. Oh, yeah. Forget, forget it, guys. Check in on the next video. I do need to make, I have a giveaway coming up. When I was at Smoky Mountain Knife Works, I was able to pick up a few things. So if you're watching this, check the next couple of videos. I picked up a bunch of, just a bunch of hats, and I'm going to give them away on the channel. So be looking for that. I was going to do it in this video, but it's too late and I'm not editing this. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.